Tonight on the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time, two major WWE stars suffer injuries, and one of them will be out for up to 6 months. A Ring of Honor star has a major injury scare last weekend. A look back at more of SummerSlam's greatest moments. Another major TNA star enters rehab for addiction. What effect will it have on his career? We'll talk about that tonight. And a live perspective from this week's SmackDown in Rockford, Illinois. Also in depth, looking at the signing of Tito Ortiz to Impact Wrestling. All that and more right here, right now on My 24 Milwaukee. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time Saturday night here from Milwaukee, Wisconsin on My 24 Milwaukee. Damian Nelson sitting alongside David Octavius and Tiberius, the alleged backyard one-time knockout ordained straight edge Divas Hall of Famer hero. And
yes.
David, how are you? You look a little tired today. What's going on? Did you get any sleep last night?
It's been a long week.
Is that right?
It's been a very long week.
Well, then let's get right to it, and let's get to this week's WWE Raw report, ladies and gentlemen. Raw this past Monday night, back live on the USA Network, and Daniel Bryan gets a makeover, well, an attempted makeover with a suit and tie, if you will, and then they attempt to cut his beard off. Stephanie McMahon, Vince McMahon, both involved.
No.
Daniel Bryan saying,
No. Stephanie was not involved in the beard.
She was not involved in the beard. She was involved in the suit and tie.
Yes.
Which is what I was saying. If I could
didn't
continue
sound that
here.
way.
John Cena is an entertainer. Daniel Bryan is a wrestler. That's what Daniel Bryan would tell us Monday night on Raw, and says he will make John Cena tap out and that the beard is here. That brought out Vince McMahon, who said the line I love hearing him say to the audience, which is, these people don't know what they want. I know what they want.
And he said it just like that.
A long opening segment. Wade Barrett ultimately gets his beard shaven off by Daniel Bryan in the barber's chair. A little bit of ridiculousness in Green Bay, Wisconsin this past Monday night.
I felt bad for Wade Barrett. The guy is he's a good talent, a solid talent.
Great talent.
He's a great in-ring performer, and for him to lose his beard to Daniel Bryan Danielson.
On a week that the 12th Doctor of Doctor Who was announced, they do this to a...
Really? A 12th? Who is it?
12th. Peter Gibaldi.
Oh, you just could have said Doctor Who, and I would have said, who is it?
He's a doctor. The doctor.
Doctor Who.
As you were.
You ruined it. Anyways, you know what the interesting thing is, though, is Daniel Bryan comes down, runs down John Cena, says he's in... how are they going to have wine together anymore? How are they going to, have dinners together?
That's a different show.
But that show was laying the groundwork for SummerSlam.
Have they mentioned anything on Total Divas about the SummerSlam matchup?
Not yet, because this was taped earlier.
Has John Cena or Daniel Bryan mentioned anything about Total Divas on WWE broadcast?
No, they don't have to.
Exactly.
Right.
They don't have to, so the implied link is definitely there, but they're not making it a point to make that link known.
When they showed John Cena's palatial palace in Tampa, and then they showed...
Sort of like my house.
Yes.
I only have 10 cars, though.
Exactly, and they're Matchbox.
And they're all American.
Then you go to Daniel Bryan's house, which is, the average, American house, and John Cena looks at Brie and says...
The average American house has a television.
Well, that's true, if not 3 or 4. But John Cena, as Daniel Bryan leaves the house to go chop wood, goes to Brie, are you sure this is what you want? Like he's burying Daniel Bryan to his girlfriend. You know that's not going to play out well.
This translates well to their SummerSlam match, though.
Absolutely.
Big returns this past Monday night on Raw. In addition to Kofi Kingston, Ricardo Rodriguez returns to Raw, and he is alongside Alberto Del Rio, but not for long. Alberto Del Rio decimating Ricardo Rodriguez at the end of that matchup, and it was a seemingly one-night return for Ricardo.
And did he lay the proverbial smackdown on Ricardo? I mean, they beat him with the bucket. He smashed his head between the stairs. Oh, he kicked the bucket. Interesting. I don't know where you'd take Ricardo Rodriguez from there, because he doesn't really fit in with anybody else. I mean, they could put him with Christian for the Mexican connection.
Or, I don't know where you go from there, but SummerSlam, Alberto Del Rio is defending the World Heavyweight Championship. couple of weeks outside of that brutal attack on Ricardo, maybe he cost him the World Heavyweight Championship at SummerSlam. SummerSlam is riddled with shenanigans surrounding championships over the last few years.
Yes.
This could be an interesting one.
It's going to be very interesting.
Speaking of interesting, John Cena cut another serious promo. It was not playtime for John Cena this past Monday night. I thought it was well done, very good. However, I was surprised to see Randy Orton and The Shield confront John Cena and Daniel Bryan to come in and help make the save. Obviously, that would set up the main event matchup.
You know, Randy Orton is getting better and better and more believable every single week with that briefcase.
Yeah.
He is the champ, as far as I'm concerned. There's no doubt in my mind he will cash it in and become the new champion.
Brock Lesnar and CM Punk spar once again. CM Punk suffering a cut lip as a result of this fight.
Oh, that was his chin.
Chin?
You think he's got a glass jaw?
Why would he have a glass jaw, David Hero?
I'm just saying. I mean,
what are you just saying?
It's split open. It's split open. You know, I mean, it's a pop to the chin.
He suffered a cut to his chin. Paul Heyman has challenged CM Punk for next week, and there seemingly will be some shenanigans.
Say something stupid, Paul.
And
he did. And he did.
You can take a look at all the results of WWE Raw from this past Monday night, scrolling at the bottom of your screen right now, match by match, and we'll give you that all as well for Impact and SmackDown later on here in this broadcast. Overall, David Hero.
We got a ticker?
We have a ticker. Overall, what was your opinion of this past Monday's WWE Raw? You know what?
I thought Raw had a good flow. I thought it made sense. They're definitely in SummerSlam mode. Wasn't a great show, but it wasn't terrible.
All right, well, there's a lot more still to come here on the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time, and right after this timeout, we're going to be taking a look at the SmackDown Report. We were there live last night, David Hero, and have some perspectives on the broadcast that aired last night on the Sci-Fi Network. Also, Impact Wrestling, big return or a big debut last week, and also the results of Impact.
There's a big debut?
Yeah, you didn't hear?
I must have missed it.
It was hashtag August 1. And also this week's Diamond of the Ring. We go in depth on that big debut for Impact Wrestling as well. Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time continues right here on My 24 Milwaukee. We're going to come back into SmackDown. She is Mike.
Okay. I think it's on, right? She's been really quiet.
No, it's not on. I'll just make sure you had it on.
That
You can, you have to breathe heavy.
is an issue.
Oh, heavy pants.
No. For weeks, I've been meaning to say something because when I'm editing, all I hear is.
I can't hear it on TV.
No, we're at SmackDown.
Oh, you were tuning it out then, trying to listen to all the that you can blame on me when you're clicking all 28 minutes of the broadcast. It gets worse as have you heard his clicking on TV?
No.
See?
I hear it vividly when I'm editing.
Well, because it's right there and you're listening.
Because you're
not right now. I never hear it when you're doing it here. I never.
Hi, gang. Mean Gene Okerlund here on My 24, and you're watching the Pro Wrestling Report. All of the news about wrestling, not only here in Milwaukee, but throughout the world. Stay up to date. Join us every Saturday night.
You don't hear what I'm saying to you when I'm next to you.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report here on My 24 Milwaukee. Damian Nelson sitting here alone. And it's time, David, to talk about this week's WWE SmackDown. We were there in Rockford, Illinois last night. And it was a good show, David Hero. I was impressed. It was not that I didn't expect it to be, but let's face it, SmackDown, the least watched of the two big shows from WWE each week, but they really did a good job, including Miz TV, which set up yet another SummerSlam matchup. Dolph Ziggler and Caitlyn will be teaming up to take on Big E Langston and AJ at SummerSlam. As I said, David Hero, you say brutal, yet you initially liked this match being set up.
No, I didn't like the Miz TV.
Why not?
Was
it his shoes?
It was everything. I do like the match because it protects Big E and Dolph Ziggler from having their first big match against each other on pay-per-view. You throw the girls into it, it's a good distraction. That way, Dolph and Big E aren't the focal point where one gets to go forward and the one goes backwards. Does that make sense? Are you following along there?
It does make sense, absolutely. Rob Van Dam versus Randy Orton opened up the broadcast, and Rob Van Dam, David Hero.
Scared the bejesus out of me.
Oh, yes. Randy Orton been listening to some of your comments over the last few years, and I think he tried to attack you.
I love Randy Orton. He's
seen
fantastic.
clearly on SmackDown.
And he threw Rob Van Dam at me. That was terrible.
And you didn't attempt to catch him.
Whoa, wait. But the way you ran away was ridiculous.
I'm a broadcast journalist. I know to get out of the way of the athletes who are the stars of the show.
You freaking ran away. Embarrassing. I thought you were a man.
Rob Van Dam, over with the audience.
It's amazing how over he is.
It's almost like he's been gone for 4 years from wrestling.
Well, he has
in
been,
total.
because people haven't seen him on TNA Impact Wrestling.
People a week did.
But not the people that watch SmackDown or Raw. But he comes out, and good God Almighty, were there the RVD chants.
Yeah. And twice, because he wrestled twice.
And it was like, okay, well, who's the babyface, who's the heel? Randy Orton did such a great job being both.
Speaking of doing a great job, David Hero, I think you had a moment this past SmackDown where you realized just how great Randy Orton is.
I did. I said, right now there is no better performer as far as believability and everything else in the ring than Randy Orton right now.
And as a result of that, next week we're going to go in depth on Randy Orton and take a look closely at why those things are true, David Hero. That's next week right here on the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime. SmackDown ends in a big way with Damian Sandow attempting to cash in his brand new Money in the Bank briefcase. However, that would be interrupted by Cody Rhodes, the endorsed Cody Rhodes.
Amazing. That is a beautiful briefcase. It's all leather.
It's the best looking Money in the Bank briefcase
ever. It's embossed. And, yeah, would have been very interesting if he would have cashed it in Rockford.
You can follow along with all the match results on the ticker here on the screen. We got to name that. What do you want to call it?
The ticker?
And David, overall, SmackDown, your thoughts?
I thought it was a good wrestling show. There was a lot of wrestling on SmackDown.
Absolutely, there were. And there was also a lot of wrestling on this week's Impact Wrestling broadcast, David Hero. Again, follow along the results, match by match, at the bottom of the screen. But some takeaways from the broadcast this past Thursday night. Bully Ray and Chris Sabin, Brooke Hogan brings out the contract for their cage match to be signed for their matchup next week at Hardcore Justice. And Brooke says that if Bully Ray loses, he'll never be able to challenge for the TNA title again.
So they gave away the finish.
Well, they did this with Sting, remember? If he didn't defeat Bully Ray, he had the same stipulation.
Sting is old and it's time for him to move on. But Bully Ray, he's going to be there for a few more years.
When you say gave away finish, you mean at Hardcore Justice, we will see a new TNA World Heavyweight Champion.
There is no doubt Bully Ray will become the new TNA Impact World Heavyweight Champion in that cage.
You want to make it interesting?
Well, sure, absolutely.
I really don't want to. Tito Ortiz, man, we're going to be talking about later, the hashtag August 1 warning.
He was the Hall of Famer, right? Former Intercontinental Champion?
Inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame on July 7th of last year.
With Rick Martel and Strikeforce?
No, that's Reba McEntire.
I don't remember her.
She sang the national anthem at WrestleMania.
Yeah, oh, yes, yes.
Kurt Angle came out, more on him later, and told Ortiz to respect him. Bully Ray says he doesn't respect either of them. I don't know why Bully Ray's in the middle of this. Well,
because
they didn't know at the time that they would need Bully Ray in the middle of that. But we'll have discussion again on Ortiz on In-Depth later. And if you could stop making faces over here off camera while I'm talking about TNA, trying to make a mockery of our TNA reports, because they did a damn good thing this past Thursday night. I think in Bobby Roode joining forces with Bad Influence.
I agree. I think that's fantastic. That's great for all three of them. They have the six-man titles now, right?
They don't have. No, they're the United States six-man tag team champions.
Gotcha.
The United States six-man tag team
they're the
TV
North American
champions.
six-man tag team champions.
That's this week's Impact Report, ladies and gentlemen, and it is now time to talk a little bit about Ring of Honor Wrestling. And unfortunately, some sad news from Ring of Honor Wrestling, as this past Saturday in Toronto, ROH performer BJ Whitmer suffers an injury in a match with Michael Bennett. This happened in Toronto at the Maple Leaf Gardens. The injury came as Whitmer received a pile driver on the ring apron. And while Whitmer was tended to after the matchup by local medical staff and then taken to a local hospital, a spinal injury was feared initially. However, Whitmer has since been released from the hospital and will be seeking further evaluation this week. He did take to Twitter and commented on the events of that evening, saying, and I quote, "What happened last night was an accident. It was no one's fault. Keep your head up at Real Mike Bennett. Love ya, bro." And continued by saying, "Want to send a special thank you to Maria Canellis and Mike Bennett for staying right by my side at the hospital Saturday night. Hashtag family." We, of course, wish Whitmer the speediest of recoveries in his current situation. That's this week's Ring of Honor report, ladies and gentlemen.
That's
it's
it?
now time. And do you have comments on that?
You know,
It was a big show in Toronto.
it was a big show in Toronto, and it wasn't nobody's fault because they obviously trust each other, but you don't do an old school pile driver on the ring apron where you have maybe a foot to work with. Do what the Taker does, the tombstone. Far safer. Ring of Alzheimer's.
In fairness, David Hero, they've been performing these type moves for the last 11 years they've been in existence, and this is the first incident of its type. So,
Okay.
let's go now to this week's Diamond of the Ring, which I would imagine probably won't be Mike Bennett. David Hero, take it away.
No. This week's Robert Hack Diamond of the Ring, the place where they pay cash for gold, is Mr. WWE Championship Money in the Bank, Randy Orton. Randy Orton has been absolutely tremendous. In-ring promo with John Cena, telling him he is the champ is here. Having a great match with Rob Van Dam on SmackDown. Randy Orton keeps getting better and better and better, and it's just a matter of time before he is our new WWE champion. This week's Robert Hack Diamond of the Ring, the Viper, Randy Orton.
Hi,
Linda
Dave.
Kay.
What's going on,
How
Dave?
are you?
I'm doing tremendous. Hashtag.
You are doing tremendous.
Tremendous.
Absolutely.
I don't think I have a lot going on coming up with GLCW and a lot of events with PWR.
We have a lot of GLCW shenanigans, and let's not forget tomorrow night.
Absolutely.
But that's your gig, that's your segment, so by all means.
All right, we'll get right
Event
into that. It is now time for the PWR Event Center, brought to you by Gruber Law Offices. One call, that's all. WWE will be returning to Milwaukee for a SmackDown TV taping at the BMO Harris Bradley Center on September 24th. Tickets are now on sale and are still available at Ticketmaster.com. He's a three-time WWE champion, a hardcore legend, and a member of the WWE Hall of Fame. Now, Mick Foley is unleashing the same trademark blend of wit and wisdom, wildness and warmth that made his book so beloved into his one-man spoken word stage show, Tales from Wrestling Past. Join Mick Foley for Tales from Wrestling's Past tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night.
Sunday, the 11th.
Sunday, August
Gotcha.
11th at the Miramar Theater on Oakland Avenue in Milwaukee. This is a one-of-a-kind show that you do not want to miss. Get details now at blizzardbrawl.com.
And you know, Linda, every ticket you buy for this event tomorrow for Mick Foley's spoken word show is a meet and greet ticket.
Meet and greet.
So after the show, everyone gets to meet and greet Mick Foley.
Extra bonus.
It's tremendous.
All right, and that's it for this week's Event Center, presented to you by Gruber Law Offices, and we'll see you at the matches.
Mick Foley tomorrow night. That's pretty
Yes,
impressive.
That is. It's going to be a fantastic show. Like I said,
WWE Hall of Famer.
Every
This is past
ticket's
year.
meet and greet. You get to meet and greet Mick Foley after the show.
Awesome. Well, it is time, ladies and gentlemen, for this week's hot news. It's all the headlines you need in around 60 seconds or less for those of you keeping score at home. Many of you noticed the heavy wrapping on WWE Champion John Cena's elbow this past Monday night on Raw, while Cena is apparently suffering from an elbow injury. John Cena posted the following on Twitter on Tuesday night.
What if his ankle was wrapped?
To
Would it be an
those,
ankle injury?
to all those wondering how a baseball got stuck in my left elbow, it's complicated. I'll be fine for hashtag SummerSlam. WWE.com is reporting that WWE star Sheamus has suffered a shoulder injury and will be out for 4 to 6 months after surgery scheduled for this week. The injury occurred during the Money in the Bank matchup in July. The full extent of the injury was discovered this past Monday night at WWE Raw. WWE has also announced that they will soon begin production on a sequel to See No Evil, which was a movie released in 2006. The movie, which
May
will be
19th.
produced by WWE and Lionsgate, will star WWE mainstay Kane, who will be reprising his role as Jacob Goodnight. The movie will begin production later this year, and no release date has been given. TNA star Kurt Angle was arrested last Thursday night for driving while intoxicated in Texas. Unlike his past arrests,
That happens
Angle
in Texas?
immediately admitted his problem, saying, and I quote, I am blessed to have the support of my family, my friends, and my company. In light of recent events, I will be immediately entering a rehabilitation center. I realize that this is a pivotal time in my life, and I ask for your understanding as well as your prayers and continued support. I am confident that in taking these steps, I can begin to address necessary changes in my life. On Tuesday, TNA President Dixie Carter said, and I quote, "Today, Kurt Angle has entered a rehab facility. As a cherished member of the TNA family, we support his decision and wish him strength through this difficult, important recovery process."
So she tweets.
She did tweet. No hashtag Ask Dixie in that one.
Gotcha.
Of course, well wishes to all those injured stars and Kurt Angle, who's doing the right thing at this point. Coming up next, though, we got a lot more to talk about here on the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime. We got this week's 3 count, looking at the top stars from last week's TV. Look at more of SummerSlam's greatest moments, an in-depth look at the signing of Tito Ortiz to TNA Impact Wrestling, and a preview of next week's Pro Wrestling Report Primetime. But before all that, it's time to find out what is on David Hero's mind in this week's DWHS.
Last week on Impact Wrestling, the big August 1 reveal turned out to be former UFC champion Tito Ortiz. I'm sure that some of the fans at home were confused when they heard about August 1 because it was never mentioned on TV in the weeks leading up to the show. It was only mentioned online the weekend prior. With all that being said, the debut of another MMA fighter within the company has people shaking their heads. Why bring in someone that is not ring ready? Tito Ortiz, Rampage Jackson, and King Mo have both not been properly trained for the wrestling ring. Rumors swirled before Kurt Angle's most recent DWI in rehab had Kurt Angle facing Rampage Jackson at Bound for Glory. A solid match with some possible mainstream interest. But then we find out that Rampage will be fighting Ortiz for Bellator a couple weeks later. How do they expect these guys to train for a pro wrestling match and have an MMA event at the same time? And how could Kurt Angle beat Rampage knowing that he has an MMA fight with Ortiz? And how can Rampage beat Kurt in his own style match? My head is spinning and wondering, where is the payoff? And with that, David Hero has spoken. That's what I need to do.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time here on My 24 Milwaukee. Damian Nelson sitting alongside David Hero. Are you awake?
Yes, I am.
I mean, again,
awake.
you just look, you're not TV ready this week.
Okay, first of
you
all,
got to do the Jessica Savage
do
thing.
you
Jennifer
realize
Savage.
the road trip I had to put up with you to get to Rockford? That was exhausting. And then, let's not forget what happened at McDonald's after that. You Jim Cornetted poor Esmeralda Rodriguez because she screwed up your order.
7 times they screwed up my order.
It was so. We got video of that. Can we put that up?
What's this? Oh, thank you. I'm gonna eat it, but what is that? Says no tomato, right?
Yes. Has tomato on it?
Yeah. I'll just take it off, but still.
No,
No, I'm gonna take it off.
No,
No, thank you.
okay, no.
No, I'm gonna take it off. Thank you.
They need to learn how to do things, you know?
They do. That's all right, though.
No tomato is no tomato.
That's
Let
all
me bring you a new one. Please.
No, I'll just take it off. It's just tomato. It's okay. I appreciate it. Yeah, and thank you for the apple
Okay,
pie.
I'm sorry for that inconvenience. Okay.
Thank you. You know we don't have
What?
straws.
Yell back at her.
Shit on this. You f up every part of yours. Welcome to this week's 3 count, ladies and gentlemen, where I take a look at who I thought were the most valuable players from each of the broadcasts of the week. On Raw, I'm going to give it to Ricardo Rodriguez. He made everything so
was a human pinata.
believable. Exactly. In his falling out with Alberto Del Rio this past Monday night. Good job to Ricardo. Hopefully we'll see him in a role in WWE very soon. On SmackDown, a man who I have said on this program publicly I don't understand the appeal of, but I saw it with my own 2 eyes live, Rob Van Van Dam this
But
past
did
Friday
you hear
night
it with your ears?
on SmackDown. I heard it as well. And over on Impact Wrestling, the new trio of Bad Influence, adding Bobby Roode to that group, is fantastic. And one of the best tag teams in wrestling just got better.
It's going to be interesting to see how they go forward with those three, what they're going to do.
Absolutely. Well, that's this week's 3 Count. And David Hero, last week we talked about SummerSlam, which comes to us next Sunday on pay-per-view. We look back at some of the better events of SummerSlam history. And I want to go back now this week to 1994. It was the opening event at the United Center in Chicago, Illinois.
Were you there?
I was not there, actually. I was not able to attend.
They wouldn't let you in?
The main event was The Undertaker versus The Undertaker, David Hero. And remember Leslie Nielsen performing the role of detective, trying to find the real Undertaker. Paul Bearer with the big spotlight urn, and Howard Finkel introducing him as the one, the only, The Undertaker. What a weird main event, but what a great execution at the United Center in 1994.
You know, a lot of people have panned it. They didn't enjoy it. They didn't think it was fun. But you know what? It was what it was. It was something different.
Theatrics.
It was something different. It was theatrics, and that was, of course, before the whole Attitude Era started, and they were still doing more character stuff. But yeah, I mean, I bought the pay-per-view. I watched it.
1997. It was Heart and Soul.
Yes.
Bret Hart versus The Undertaker. The Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, the guest referee. The chair shot, the loogie, the 1, 2, 3 with such rage and anger from the face of Shawn Michaels, who had to reluctantly give that count to give Bret Hart the WWE Championship, which led us to Survivor Series 97.
Bret Hart told me that is when everything changed, when he went from the #1 heel to then Shawn Michaels becoming the #1 heel by screwing The Undertaker.
Let's not forget the event that opened that night. It was Mick Foley versus Triple H at the Continental Airlines Arena in East Rutherford, New Jersey. And Foley would pay homage to Superfly with the dive off the top rope. I'm sorry, off the top of the steel cage.
Off the top of the steel cage, yes. I mean, that was the start of the whole Triple H and Mick Foley becoming main eventers as well.
2002, Rock versus Brock, and the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels versus Triple H. Real quick, David Hero, what a SummerSlam.
It was fantastic. It was the passing of the torch to Brock Lesnar.
That's a look back at SummerSlam. Next week, we'll bring you Be the Booker for SummerSlam, where we look at it match by match and give you some insight as to the outcomes, or at least the ones we think will happen at that pay-per-view. But before that, it's time to go in-depth, David Hero,
Yes,
and I'd like you to go ahead and wipe the smirk off your face and get ready to talk seriously about a situation
Well, but I already
from last
mentioned
week.
some of the stuff in DWHS.
You did, but I'm going to go ahead and clean it up. Last week, TNA Wrestling began an online teaser campaign regarding a new star that would be joining the company. In these videos, the star said he was not contracted to TNA and even went as far as to say that he was not Dave Bautista or Chris Jericho, which set the bar pretty dang on high as to who the reveal would be. Last Thursday on Impact Wrestling, at the very end of the broadcast, after most people's DVR stopped recording, we found out that this star was former UFC champion Tito Ortiz. Tito Ortiz.
Not Santana.
There is no denying that Ortiz has name recognition and was a major star in the UFC
Well, he's married
in the
to
2000s.
Jenna Jameson.
He's even made appearances in the past for TNA back in May and October of 2005, acting as special guest referee. Ortiz was announced to face Quentin Rampage Jackson at a Bellator event in November of this year. Spike TV has been doing a lot of cross-promotion between Bellator and TNA, as TNA is their highest-rated program, so it's a natural crossover opportunity for the network. Well, what about TNA? Actually, the deeper question is...
Wait, Bar Rescue's not higher rated?
The deeper question is this. What is the impact of Ortiz, who isn't a trained wrestler, in TNA? If you gauge it by the reaction of the fans in Wichita Falls, Texas, on the live Impact, there isn't one. The audience was dead. They had no reaction to the big reveal
Maybe if
last
his
Thursday.
name would have been on the big screen behind him, they would have known who he was.
This comes at a time where TNA has released several talents and has had several other incidents which can only be described as bad business.
There's that word again.
And one could argue that this is another of those incidents.
I feel bad for the TNA wrestling talents because now they have 3 MMA fighters in the locker room that aren't trained professional wrestlers.
King Mo, Quentin Rampage Jackson, Tito Ortiz.
And they can't bring anything to the table yet because they're not ready for it. Because they're too busy training for MMA fights for Bellator.
Here are some assumptions.
Oh,
the
boy.
assumption is TNA is paying these people. The assumption is Spike TV is pushing.
I think Spike is paying some of it.
I think Spike might be paying a majority of it, if not all of it. Because keep in mind, back in the day, Spike was paying part of some of the larger salaries of Impact wrestlers and may still be. And thirdly, cross-promotion makes a lot of sense. TNA may not have a say in this, by the way. So a lot of ill will has been placed on TNA for this decision, and you can say that it perhaps was not a direction they wanted to go in, but at the same time, as you talked about in DWHS, David Hero, the tease was online the weekend before the show, nothing on the broadcast before.
Nothing.
Nobody knew something was coming. They tried to sell it over the course of the 2-hour broadcast.
Here's how people learned about it. They saw a white Hummer pull up.
Which is a nice pun, if you will.
And a laptop in the back seat.
And Taz, why is Taz locked out of the building? Let alone, why'd they fly him in to be locked out of the building and not really contribute anything to the broadcast?
Details. Don't be about details.
Tito Ortiz. There's a couple things to look at. You got the matchup between.
I thought it was Loki at first when he walked out.
The assumed matchup, between Kurt Angle and Quentin Rampage Jackson in October at Bound for Glory. Don't know how long Kurt's going to be in rehab. How can, as you said in DWHS, they come out of that match and go into a real fight and be believed?
Poor planning. I mean, of course it's rumor and speculation that Kurt versus Rampage was scheduled. Well, I'm sure it was scheduled, but it's going to be very interesting how they're going to clean it. And now with Kurt Angle out of the picture, it's a whole lot of nonsense down there in Nashville.
Let's give it a chance, though. Let's see what TNA does with Tito Ortiz over the course of the next few weeks on Impact Wrestling. David Hero, that is a show, and we are out of here. That is it for this week's edition of the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime Saturday night. I want to thank all of you for tuning in and invite you to join us again next week where we go in-depth on Randy Orton, and we have Be the Booker looking at WWE SummerSlam, which is next Sunday on pay-per-view.
Am I going to see you tomorrow at the Miramar?
You will see me tomorrow at the Miramar Theater, of course, because I want to meet Mick Foley, who is a hardcore legend. You can do that tomorrow night, Miramar Theater.
And he's a former GLCW champion.
7 o'clock p.m., WizardBrawl.com for all the information. For that one, this is Damian Nelson saying so long, everyone. We'll see you next week.